you guys want to go ahead and pay attention to this entire article because this is extremely important. The guns and ammunition of a 56-year-old Lighthouse Point, Florida resident were confiscated by police in what is reportedly the first such seizure under gun control laws signed by Governor Rick Scott last week. The Orlando Sentinel reports that 4 firearms and 267 rounds of ammunition were taken from the man's house, and he was taken to a hospital for involuntary mental treatment. The seized firearms were listed as a regular LCP .380 pistol, an M2 Masser 45 caliber pistol, a Character Arms 357 mag snub-nose revolver, and a Mossberg 512 gauge shotgun. So they're not exactly, AR-15s. But let's continue. The paper notes that the civil ruling removing his access to guns and ammunition was granted under new legislation which permits confiscating guns from people who have not been committed but are deemed a potential risk to themselves or others. According to the order signed by Broward Chief Judge Jack Tudor, the confiscatory order also bears the man from making new firearm or ammunition purchases. On March 9th, news reported that Governor Rick Scott signed a $400 million gun bill that includes orders which allows a family member or law enforcement to petition a judge to order the seizure of an individual's firearms. The bill also put waiting periods in place for long gun purchases, raised minimum purchase age for long gun purchases from 18 to 21, and banned bump stocks. When asked about the confiscation order that resulted in the seizure of the Lighthouse Point residents' firearms, Mayor Glenn Trost said, "This is not about the Second Amendment, and it's not about the NRA. We need common sense gun laws, and this is a common sense gun law that gives police officers new tools they need to help protect our community." Well, I'll be goddamned. There's that fucking saying again. Common sense gun laws. For those of you who do not know, I made a video about this saying, this common sense gun laws, and that liberals, and now apparently Republicans, are using to confiscate guns from citizens. Which again, for those of you who don't know, this whole common sense gun legislation was brought up during the 2016 campaign when a Hillary Clinton advisor and higher level campaigner was said quoting that this common sense gun legislation was a vessel in order to ban guns, all guns. Now, I looked all over the internet and other articles about this, and none of them proved the man's full name or the type of mental illness he was, quote, suffering from. For all we know, this man could have had some kind of mild depression 10 or 5 years ago, and once you're diagnosed with that, you can basically never own a gun in your life now. Or like the article states, that this new $400 million gun bill allows a family member or law enforcement person to petition a judge to order the seizure of any individual's firearms, meaning that this new bill can be very easily abused by liberals and other forms of social justice warriors. Some fuckhead liberals go to a court and petitions a judge to order the removal of someone's guns because that social justice warrior happens to be related to that person and believes that they are not in their right state of mind because they, believe in borders, believe that there are more than 2 genders, and what have you. I've talked about this shit in older videos about gun control and how it's just a liberal's way of taking our guns. This isn't a crazy Alex Jones conspiracy theory anymore. They have actually taken away a man's guns now. Now, listen up, people, and listen very closely. This is only the fucking beginning of this kind of shit. Just watch. This is just the first case of law enforcement taking a citizen's guns away, and mark my words, there will be more cases to come. And Rick Scott is supposed to be a Republican. I thought Republicans wanted less gun control. Guys, this is why I don't trust the Rhino Republicans, just like I don't trust the neoliberals. Now, I support Trump, I really do. But it was him who first coined taking people's guns away if they have some sort of mental illness, or if they are under the age of 21. So I have to ask, Trump, what the fuck are you doing? Listen, I know you want to get the liberals off your back, and it must be tiring always having to deal with their stupidity, but this is going a step too far. Any support Trump will gain with his tax cuts and immigration force will be outweighed by him going after guns. Trump supporters are hardcore gun supporters. That's who voted for Trump, and now that he has started all this shit, how many of them will drop support of him? I truly support Trump on his tax plans, his immigration plans. I support building the wall, and I support his foreign policy. But this? I can't stand behind Trump on this, and I'm sure many of you can't either. Now, I don't know whether or not this is Trump's plan the entire time. Maybe he's doing this as some sort of strategy to get the liberals off his back and put this whole gun control issue behind him. But the best way to do that is not discuss the issue whatsoever and just let it die out in the minds and attention spans of the general population. But Trump has started all this mental health push, the push to ban bump stocks that is completely useless since no mass shooters even ever use them, and he is the one who started this whole discussion about stopping people who are under the age of 21 from owning firearms. But since a little while now, Trump has pulled back on this whole disarmament rhetoric and actually has sided with the Second Amendment, which is good on his part. But I think the damage of him leaving the side for the Second Amendment and briefly flirting with the idea of disarmament has gone far past anything he could ever imagine. Case in point, the topic of this video is about a man in Florida who had his guns taken away because of whatever mental illness he might have. And again, no article that I found said the man's name, nor did it state the man's certain mental illness, if he even has one. Now, I'm going to entertain the idea that he didn't even have a mental illness. Just let me explain. Look at the liberal left. It's clear they want to ban all guns, and saying this common sense gun laws is just a vehicle to accomplish total disarmament. So in case in point of the topic of today's video, which is about a mentally ill man who had his guns taken away, if the left thought they had a good reason for his disarmament, like let's say this man was a diagnosed psychopath or some other schizophrenic disorder, he has a disorder where he sees little red devils running around and from time to time he shoots them. I think if this man had some type of serious mental problems like that, they would have said this in any of the articles I have read, but they didn't. If this man was a psychopath or a schizophrenic man, they would have used that to their advantage. So they could say, hey, look everybody, these are the type of crazy people that gun shop owners are selling to. People who hallucinate shit all the time. People who are not all there mentally. Or this person is a psychopath or something. They would have used that, but again, no article states that this man has any real serious mental problems like that. Because I honestly believe that he didn't have a serious mental issue. And again, listen to the article I just read. This law clearly states that any relatives of yours could go down to the court and get a petition from a judge order and have your guns removed because they said you were fucking loony. I could most definitely see this law being abused by citizens, law enforcement, and of course the state governments. This is completely unconstitutional and should be appealed by the fucking Supreme Court. And Rick Scott, the dumb fuck who voted for this, should be dragged off to prison for literally violating this man's constitutional rights as a United States citizen. This law is absolutely unconstitutional. Alright, look, just imagine the scenario in which you get into a heated debate about, ironically, gun control with a relative or some shit. They don't like that you mop the floor with them in the debate, so they go down to the court the next day, get a petition from a judge. The judge therefore orders law enforcement to come and take your guns away. And if you try to defend yourself, the cops will most likely gun you down. And trust me when I say there will be no one out marching in the streets with the hashtags Gun Owner Lives Matter. The left will use the powers that be, CNN, MSNBCs, the mainstream media, to label anybody who does march for this horrible bigot that supports cop killers. Funny enough, the left sided with Black Lives Matter when they were talking about how they wanted to kill cops and white people, but only use cops when it's convenient to ensure they can take your guns away. No, Trump needs to come out against this shit he started and stop this shit from further escalating to a point of literal civil fucking war. I could see a scenario in which this this law in particular that Florida just passed could end up escalating to where it does escalate into a civil war. You are literally confiscating weapons from a man who you claim to be not mentally all there. But then again, what is the definition of mental illness? What is the definition of what mental disorders are bad enough to where you can't own guns? This part of the article, or this part of the new law that Rick Scott has passed, doesn't really clarify that. It doesn't clarify, okay, if you have depression like 10 fucking years ago, you can't own a gun. If you're a psychopath, you can't own a gun. It doesn't really clarify what is a dangerous mental disorder versus one that's just mild and extremely common, something like a depression. This is the part of the bill that doesn't really go into detail about that. But again, why the fuck would it? The liberals and now Republicans are going to use this as a issue for total disarmament. Mark my words when I say that. We literally cannot trust these fucking Republicans in office because they are literally no different than the Democrats that we were fighting against. The Democrats and Republicans are literally the exact same fucking thing in terms when you're talking about the neoliberals, neocons, rhino Republicans, and establishment Democrats. There are literally no fucking difference between them. So now we have to worry about the Democrats going after the guns, but now we have to worry about fucking Republicans going after guns as well. How fucking grandiose is this? Is this literally going to start a new civil war? Because I could see a scenario in which this escalates to the point where yes, it does cause a civil war. Because trust me when I tell you that the American populace is not so gung-ho about banning guns as liberals make it out to seem. The American population is actually very for arming the American population. The article goes on to say that this law will make our communities safer. No, it fucking won't. This law takes away guns from people who have whatever mental disorder, which is like 490 fucking 2 of them. Because again, this law doesn't specify what is a dangerous mental disorder and what isn't. So I'm assuming they mean a broad stroke of all mental disorders, which is again going to be used to the benefit of the liberals, SJW, progressives, and general politicians who want disarmament. But I mean, what are we going to do about this kind of shit? This law is so obviously unconstitutional, but it's already been passed. It's been passed. It's done. So what are we going to do now? People in Florida, I don't know what the fuck you're going to do. Is Florida becoming California 2.0? I don't fucking know. You let me know what you guys think. That's it for this video. Peace out, guys.